Hello, and welcome to the Quietly Visible podcast. I'm your host, Cal Stewart, founder of the Bounding Solutions and author of Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introverted Woman. And this is the podcast for introverted women who want to thrive as leaders and in life, as well as for those of you who are not introverted, but you want to live an authentic life. You want to be yourself, you want to become who you are meant to be, and you want to thrive. So this is the last episode for 2025, and as I've reflected on this year and thinking about the next, I've had a lot of insights in terms of my personal journey, as well as thinking about the direction of this podcast and the work that I do as well. And the end of the year is always a good time to reflect on what you've done, what you've achieved, where you're at, and where you're going. And you shouldn't just wait till the end of the year to do this reflection, but it is a good time to look at what has gone on or what has happened in the year past and look ahead to the year that is coming. Before I talk more about this and look at goals and setting goals and how you can set goals that you're more likely to achieve, I just want to say that this podcast has been named one of the top 30 assertiveness podcasts by Million Podcasts. And we've had a few recognitions this year. And I'd just like to say thanks to everybody that watches, that listens, that supports this podcast, because the podcast is for you. The podcast is here to support you. The podcast is here to encourage you as well. So yeah, back to goals and looking at what we want to achieve and reflecting on the year that has gone. So like I said, reflecting is it's good to reflect on where you've come from, what you've achieved, what you've done, where you're going, where you're at. And because I don't just wait till the end of the year to do this. This is something that you should do on a regular basis, that self-reflection. When I look back on my year, um, I look at some of the things that I didn't achieve, that I set out to, that I didn't achieve, and I will hold my hands up and say I didn't achieve them. And there are various reasons why I didn't achieve. One thing in particular is my book, my second book that I'm in the process of writing. I had wanted to have had the first draft completed by the end of this year, but I didn't. Um, but I'm not going to beat myself up about it. The reason why I probably didn't achieve it is because other things took priority. And that's part of life. Sometimes other things take priority. And I think because with my book, it's a long term, that's more the long term investment of my time, where there were more things which were more immediate that required my attention. And another reason why I think is I spent some time working on my book yesterday, and I have reviewed the structure and the objectives of my book, and have changed things up a bit. And so now the way that I'm approaching the book, I'm much more passionate about it now, and I'm looking forward and I'm excited to completing it. And so just by doing that reflection, revisiting it, and looking at what my book is about, who it's for, and has enabled me to fall in love with it again. So that was one of the things that I didn't achieve, and there may be things that you didn't achieve that you set out to achieve, and there may be reasons which are beyond your control. There may be things that are within your control that you've just not done. But don't beat yourself up about it. Pick yourself up and continue for next year. And so when it comes to setting goals, some things to be mindful of that will help you or put you in a better position of achieving those goals are setting intrinsically motivating goals. So goals that are meaningful, that are not set on external factors or extrinsically motivating factors. So, for example, it could be that you want to get a promotion to the C-suite and earn a much bigger salary. So, if you attach your your goal to the fact that you're going to increase your salary by X amount, that in itself may not be a significant motivator. So when you've done interview after interview or you've done application after application and you've still not got nowhere, it can be hard to keep going. But an intrinsic motivator in that sort of a situation could be that you are going to get that C-suite position and increase your salary because then you'll be in a position of influence and to have more of an impact in your area of work. Or it could be that by earning a much bigger salary, it enables you to have more freedom in terms of choices or things that you do or to provide for your family. I mean, if you can link it to something which is intrinsically motivating, then that will make it easier for you to have that drive and determination to achieve it. I'll give you another example of um, something more personal that in terms of an intrinsic motivator. So I have lost about 6 stone over the past few years. That's about 84 pound. I'm not sure how much it is in kilos. I don't really work in kilos, but you can work that out for yourself. And the intrinsic motivator behind that was that I recognize that I'm getting maturing in my age. And a few years ago, I was at a family occasion and I looked at some of the elderly relatives that were there at that event, at that on that occasion. And I looked at how a couple of them, their health had declined, their physical health, their mental health had declined. And then also I looked at two of the relatives who, these relatives in their 80s, who were relatively physically active and mentally active as well. And it was like a light bulb moment to me. And I thought that this is me in 30 years' time. But depending on what I do now will determine which path I go down. I can go down the path of that physical and mental deterioration and health deterioration, or I can go down that still active mentally and physically and with better health path. But it all depends on me taking action now. And that's when I decided to make my health and fitness a priority. And that's what I've done. And that has been a strong driver for me that I know I want to age well. And that has helped to keep me focused and helped me to stay consistent with increasing my exercise and changing how I ate and making those lifestyle changes. And another thing which has helped as well me to get here and achieve this is that one of my uncles died 3 years ago from vascular dementia. Now, he lives in Canada. When I went over to the funeral and I was speaking to his wife, and she was telling me how he had developed diabetes in his 60s. He was 82 when he died. He had developed diabetes in his 60s, early 60s, I think it was. And she told him that he needed to change his diet. But he said, oh, he would let the medication deal with it. He wasn't going to change his diet. He would let the medication deal with it. But the thing is, when it comes to something like diabetes, the medication or insulin, as it is, doesn't deal with the root cause of the issue. It helps to keep your insulin levels stable. And so, but if you're not going to change your lifestyle, change your diet, and what can happen with diabetes is, and this is what happened with my uncle, he went on to develop strokes as he got a little bit older. And then those strokes led to vascular dementia. Vascular dementia led to what it was that he had when he died. And so for me, seeing elderly relatives and how lifestyle choices had impacted their health, I decided that I was going to do something about it whilst I was in a position to. And that for me was the driving force behind me achieving this weight loss, is because I wanted to look after my health, I wanted to prioritize it, and I want to age well. So having that internal motivator, that intrinsic motivation behind why you're achieving your goal will make it easier to achieve. And you're more likely to achieve it than if it's something which is extrinsically motivating or is set by uh, an external factor, right? I.e., somebody saying or imposing the goal on you. Another thing that will help is having it aligned with your values. So looking at your values, what's important to you, what matters to you, and being aligned to those values, because that's our values go to the core of who we are, and when we're making decisions, when we're making life choices, it's important that we are aligned to our values. So being aligned with your values, with your goals as well, is another factor that will make it easier to achieve your goals. Another factor is um, having that big why, and that ties in with that intrinsic motivation. So a big why for why it is that you want to do what you want to do, or why it is that you want to achieve what it is that you want to achieve. And so with my weight loss journey, my big why is that I want to get to my 70s and 80s and be be healthy, be fit, be active, still being able to dance at family get-togethers, because I do love to dance. And whilst I know there will be certain things that could happen that are outside of my control, I may not live to that age, I may get struck down with some illness or something. Um, that's outside of my control, but what I can do is do what is within my control. And that is to take responsibility for my health and fitness, and to do what I need to do to make those changes, which I've done, and I feel so much better for it. Um, what else? Another thing is accountability. Accountability and having someone hold you accountable and can help to keep you going when you feel like giving up, can encourage you, can challenge you to keep on. Um, Finding an accountability partner or getting a coach, or even if it's a friend that you decide to pair up with and say, okay, then let's hold each other accountable to achieve our goals 2026. Um, and checking in with each other, whether it's once a week, once a fortnight, however, whatever frequency works for you. Another thing is to make your goals smart goals. So setting goals which are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And so not just setting a goal which is is very vague and is very abstract, because then it's not going to give you that clarity that you need to enable you to work towards it. And making sure it's achievable and it's realistic as well. Sometimes people set goals that are just unrealistic. And yes, it's good to aim high and it's good to have the big, hairy, scary goal or whatever it's called. But at the same time, you've got to be realistic. So there's no point setting yourself up to fail. And if you are setting yourself a goal and it may be a big goal, breaking it down into small steps can make it more easier to stick to rather than having a big overwhelming goal that is so overwhelming that you just don't get going or you start, but because it feels so overwhelming, you don't continue. And it's important that you review your progress towards achieving your goals as well. Um, Whether it's weekly, you check in with yourself or with your accountability partner or your coach, or monthly or however long, but reviewing your progress towards your goal. And don't just wait until you get to the goal to celebrate. Celebrate the milestones along the way. Reward yourself for the achievement along the way, the effort along the way. Acknowledge that and celebrate it. Sometimes, a goal may take a long time to get to achieve, and that's where the motivation can be lost. So when it comes to writing my book, because I know that it is a long process and it kept getting put to the bottom of my pile, I kind of lost motivation for it. But now I've reawakened that motivation. I'm hoping that things will be different for 2026. And even though I know that other things may still take priority, um, I will take small steps and set myself small goals and celebrate those goals along the way. And I have got an accountability partner for it as well, which will hopefully help to encourage me and keep me accountable as well. And finally, what I would like to say about goals is that, life gets in the way sometimes. Things happen which are outside of our control. And so if that happens to you, then accept that that is part of life that has happened, but don't beat yourself up about it because what can happen is sometimes, you can have that all or nothing thinking where you're either all in or you're not. And anything happens that takes you off track, that's it. Acknowledge that you've gone off track or something has happened and pick yourself up and continue because that's okay. You can't control everything. You can't control those things that are outside of your control. You can't foresee things that may happen that were unexpected. But focus on what is within your area of control, and not which is outside your circle of control that you have no influence over, so that you can control how you respond to situations that may knock you off track towards your goal, and you can choose to decide to pick yourself back up. So enjoy Christmas, have a happy Christmas, have a good Christmas if you celebrate it. If you don't, enjoy the holiday period, and I look forward to seeing you in 2026. Bye.